Hello, Scouted Football Pod fans. Welcome back to another end-of-season episode. The monopolies and duopolies of Europe's major and minor leagues have been toppled this season, opening the door for incredible scenes, fantastic stories, and some scarcely believable ones too. La Liga, the Premier League, Liga, Serie A all provided us with some enthralling final days. It was a truly fantastic end to what has been a trying campaign under difficult circumstances. There were plenty of goodbyes, especially in the Premier League. As Leeds United said farewell to promotion-clinching pair Gaetano Berardi and Pablo Hernandez, while Manchester City's Sergio Aguero swan song was comprised of 2 late goals for the departing Argentine, managing to oust Wayne Rooney's record of 183 Premier League goals for a single club. We had the Europa League final and 20 perfect penalties before David De Gea stepped up, and the rest is history. But there's still the Champions League final to come this weekend, and none of those ties were contested by Italian teams. Stephen Ganavas has crawled out from the Scouted Football Handbook editing bunker to join me on this one, discussing his favourite topic, Juventus. Steve, welcome back to the land of the living. How's it been balancing Juve stress and Volume 10 editing?
Yeah, it's been an interesting past couple of weeks. If you asked me this question about a week ago, it might have been a different answer. But the events of the last week has started to give me a more optimistic outlook on all things Juventus related. But on the handbook front, we're all good to go now. So by the time this podcast launches, the handbook will be out there, and hopefully you'll go and grab a copy. It's been really fun putting this one together. We've got some great stuff on FC Nordirland and the Right to Dream Academy in Ghana, and obviously another 25 players that we've profiled, and a bunch of other awesome features, and a nice interview with Tariq Lamptey in there as well. So go grab a copy before you listen to the rest of the podcast. But all good.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Really looking forward to seeing how people receive this one, because as always, a lot of work has gone into it. Just for people who might be listening to this for the first time, where can they get that volume 10?
Yes, sfhandbook.com. Easy as that.
Simple as that.
So it's probably best to begin with a summary of Juventus' season. Obviously, 4th place was secured in Serie A, and there's been a few departures though. Paratici, the director, has departed, but also it looks as though it appears increasingly likely that Andrea Pirlo is going to be leaving as well. And I suppose my thoughts around this were that he arrived with no prior experience of managing at any level, never mind the top level, and no coaching qualifications to speak of. Juventus obviously with that 8-9 year run of winning Serie A in a row, and then they dropped to 4th, albeit with a relatively decent points tally. It did appear as though there would be some sort of managerial change towards the end of the season from sort of an external viewpoint. Max Allegri, as good as back. Is it any surprise, Steve?
Probably not. I think the club weren't, I don't think they were completely disappointed with the way Pirlo went in charge in his single season. 2 trophies, as you said, only 5 points less than Sarri won the title with last year. Obviously, Inter improved a lot and deservedly won the title. But I think with the way things are, with an opportunity now with Inter imploding to reconsolidate Juventus as top champions of Italy again next year, when the opportunity presented itself to bring Allegri back to the club, I think that, it just makes perfect sense. He's been there, done that with a lot of these players. And I think Agnelli really backs Allegri to take this team back to the top. And the departure of Paratici, I think signals kind of the end of the cycle. As weird as that sounds, with Allegri coming back, Paratici had taken over from Marotta and kind of gone towards a more ad hoc transfer strategy that I think in the last few years has led the club into some bad investments, into some high wage players that haven't delivered on the pitch. So yes, Paratici out, Allegri in with, I think, some promises of giving him a little bit of control over things on the transfer front. It's all happening at Juventus FC just a few days after the season finished.
Yeah, certainly, and I can sense a tinge of not enjoyment, but sort of relief in your voice, perhaps. You've been, I wouldn't say you've been a staunch defender of Pirlo, sort of in the manager's hot seat at Juve, but you've been one of the voices on the timeline who I think I've seen sort of being a bit more level-headed, sort of giving him the opportunity to make those mistakes in his first job in management. But what is the overriding feeling from your viewpoint of Allegri coming back, Pirlo leaving, Paratici leaving, and potentially the end of that cycle, as you say? Is this a get out of jail free card in what could have been a very difficult summer?
Yeah, so about 60 minutes into the final league games, when Milan and Napoli were both leading, and it looked like Juventus were destined for Europa League football next season, it painted a pretty sorry picture. But yeah, with Hellas Verona scoring that equaliser, Champions League football being secured, now Inter with Conte leaving and their financial issues, uh, Allegri coming back to Juve, it's all of a sudden things look a lot more rosy, and the possibility of a bounce back, immediate bounce back, is a real possibility after it looked like it might be a bit more of a slow burn. So yeah, as I said, Allegri's worked with a lot of these players before, got the best out of them, and again, you're going from a guy that's made Champions League finals, won 5 league titles. Uh, as I think Pirlo did a decent job, as maybe as well as you could expect from a first year coach, and lost the title to an Inter team with one of the best coaches in the world and a great squad. So um, yeah, I think that if you kind of put all those things together, I don't think the club is, really under or overachieved. I think what happened is what is expected, but Agnelli's really looking to propel the club forward. Allegri is a big guy to bring into the club, and yeah, I'm expecting, hopefully, optimistically, some good things next season.
So looking ahead then to this summer and to next season, of course, transfers and the financial situation is obviously going to be atop the sort of the agenda at the top of the Juve hierarchy. I suppose before we get into sort of the financial side of it, you've got Weston McKennie, who will be coming in for around 18-20 million euros at the end of his loan deal. That's an obligation. I think it's a good deal. It represents good value. And I suppose it opens a new can of worms really with Allegri coming back. How does he work with these new players who weren't there when he left the club before Maurizio Sarri took over? You got Nicolo Rovella coming in from Genoa for a similar fee. Again, I think it's a good move. And of course, you've got Federico Chiesa into the second year of his loan, but there will be a 50 million or 45 million euro obligation to buy there. There is the scope to say that there is a very talented young crop here that Allegri is going to be able to utilize and perhaps get more out of than a first year coach like Pirlo might have been able to.
Yeah, well, I think this team is really uh, geared to probably play a more transition based style, which I think will suit Allegri more. I think the way that Pirlo talked a lot about pressing high and winning the ball back quickly, but it never quite really eventuated, and the team ended up really attacking very slowly, often being forced to play through the wing backs, and relied heavily on Quadrado, who really had a great season to provide a lot of the creativity from right wing back. And I think he was the club's assist leader by some margin. So yeah, I think guys like Weston McKennie, Kulusevski, Chiesa really all suit that kind of transition style, and I think now you just need someone in midfield that can really kickstart those transition attacks, which will be, I think, the logical next step as a club, moves into the transfer market this year.
And hypothetically speaking, if Juventus were to bring in an up and coming midfielder, somebody who has a good understanding, a good experience of Serie A, somebody who you think that Max Allegri could work quite well with, and who'd also be attainable, I feel like you've definitely got a certain player in mind, and I might have a window into who that might be, but I'm just going to wait for you to confirm it because I think it's I can envisage you just laughing here because I know exactly what's about to come.
Yeah, I've probably only been talking about it non-stop for the last 6 to 9 months, but Manuel Locatelli looks like he's going to be on his way out of Sassuolo this season. They've lost their coach De Zerbi, who's going to Shakhtar, and so yeah, I think it's a bit of a two or three-way race for him between Juventus, apparently Manchester City, and PSG might be thereabouts as well, snooping around. But yeah, if we're talking about Pirlo, he's the kind of next man up in this team to kind of fulfill that role of progressing the ball from deep. We did a podcast a few months ago where we talked about passes into the final third and the way that Locatelli ranks so highly in that statistic despite playing so deep in midfield. So I think he would be the number one, or should be the number one target for this team that also struggled a lot through the midfield this year. Pirlo struggled to get a mix that fit in terms of defensive quality and ball progression. And so you get in someone like Locatelli that can give you a bit of both, then that's going to improve your team massively. And again, he's a player that I could see Max Allegri really, really enjoying having in his midfield.
Well, there you have it. I think that's Steve's. If he was going to make one change to this Juve team that wasn't Allegri coming in place of Pirlo, it would be to bring Locatelli in. And I suppose now that asks the question because I mean, this is the Scouted Football podcast. We focus on under 23 players, and Weston McKennie's 22 years of age. Rodrigo Bentancur turns 24 in a few months. They're two young players who've. I mean, I've been impressed with Weston McKennie, how he's adapted to Juventus. I think some people may have looked at him and thought, well, is he going to be able to make that step up? Is it possibly a bridge too far? But I think in a transitional season, as it was, during the time of Pirlo being the custodian, perhaps not being the most innovative, but he's got a reasonable amount out of McKennie. I just wonder if, say, for example, Locatelli was to come in, and while we, the resources that Juventus have, that's clearly something which might be likely. What does that mean? Where does that leave Weston McKennie? Where does that leave Rodrigo Bentancur? Where does that leave Arturo? These players, because they in their own right, they're obviously very talented. But is Max Allegri is he gonna go for old favourites, or is he gonna go with the new man?
Yeah, so I think it might be a little bit difficult to see where McKennie fits in. He kind of was playing his best football with Pirlo, playing a kind of hybrid attacking midfield role, which is kind of difficult to see him playing under Allegri. And then in terms of a fit deeper into midfield, I think the balance of a midfield of Rabiot, Bentancur, and Locatelli would be fantastic then with Artur to kind of swing through and be the kind of the rotation piece. So it's kind of hard to see where McKennie fits in. He's gives you good ball winning and good energy and pressing, but I still think there's a lot of deficiencies on the technical side of the game that are going to be, I know, hard to overcome to really crack it at a big team. And by all accounts, there aren't many players at Juventus that aren't going to be up for possible discussions regarding transfers at the end of the season. And it wouldn't surprise me if McKennie is one that they think of moving on if they get some sort of decent offer in. Because, yeah, with Allegri coming in, everything is all up in the air now. I think the club has a core of young players of Chiesa, Kulusevski, Delict. There's not many that are untouchable. Maybe Dybala, but yeah. Other than that, I think everything's up in the air at the moment. Even the rumors are that even Ronaldo's position is up in the air. So McKennie would be one that it's very 50-50 now.
So that's quite interesting for me to hear, I suppose, because, based on the matches that I'd seen, and granted, most of those were in Europe, I was quite impressed with what I saw from McKennie. So I agree that if it's not going to be a perfect stylistic fit, then you've got to back the manager over an individual player, unless you're Cristiano Ronaldo, and I guess we'll get on to that. But I suppose my question really is: do you were talking about breaking the cycle? Do you gut the squad? Do you gut the structure of the club? Because of obviously with Paratici going as well, top to bottom, Pirlo gone. Potential for some of the old guard to leave, potential even for some of the newer additions to go. Who are you retaining here? You were speaking about that young core. Is that pivotal to the rebirth under Allegri?
Well, I don't necessarily think you have to gut the team. You still have Morata, Ronaldo, Dybala, Kulusevski, Chiesa, Rabiot, Bentancur, Artur, Cuadrado, Danilo, who had a fantastic season, Sancho, Chiellini, Bonucci, Demiral, De Ligt. It's still a good squad from top to bottom. There is a lot to work with still. I just think that there's just little bits and pieces, and you can really have this team bounce back. And as I said with Locatelli, I think he'd be a really big piece of that. So no, I don't think that there needs to be wholesale changes. Obviously, the financial situation of just about every big club at the moment means you need to kind of make some movements out to bring players in, and it'll we'll see who Allegri wants to bring in, because it seems as though, as I said before, him having some say over the transfer side of things seems like part of the agreement with Agnelli to come back. So in terms of where I think they'd look to strengthen, apart from in midfield, possibly left fullback with Alexandro, and then maybe another guy to roll through midfield if they can, sell maybe one of McKennie or maybe both of McKennie and Ramsey. I think is one of the other players that the club's possibly looking to move on with because of injuries and high wages and whatnot. So yeah, I don't think there needs to be massive changes to get this team winning Serie A again.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a lot more cosmetic, and when you run through the squad list, you do see that there's clearly, it's not exactly the bare bones of a squad there. You do have a team who is capable of challenging for Serie A, especially with sort of the implosion that is happening with Conte leaving Inter, and the anticipated fire sale that there will be going on there. And you even just from a youth football, not a youth football, but a young footballer's perspective, you're looking at De Ligt, 21 years old, Demiral, 23, Bentancur, 23. I mean, I know we've discussed McKennie, but even if he stays, 22. Chiesa, still only 23, but vastly experienced. Kulusevski, who I think we probably didn't see the best of at Juve under Pirlo, still just 21 years old. That's your rebuild core. I think
I think also you've got Dragushin, the centre back from Romania,
yes, yeah,
who is very, very highly rated at the club and just signed a new contract. And also Nicolo Fagioli is a midfielder that played a couple of games this season that is also highly rated internally, and hopefully he could be one that thrives if a couple of secondary pieces move elsewhere as well.
See, that surprised me. Well, not surprised me. I didn't know anything about really Dragoshin before I watched him at the under-21 Euros for Romania, and they were a really compact team. They were really well coached and well put together by Adrian Mutu, obviously the former Chelsea striker. I didn't know how highly rated he was at Juve because there's a track record of players being at Juve and maybe being sold for 5-6 million, but never ever having a chance of making it into the Juve first team. If he's highly rated and you're saying that, then that's kind of caught me by surprise a little bit.
Yeah, I think RB Leipzig were trying to nab him, and I think we tied him down to a 4-year contract or something like that a few months ago. But yes, he played a couple of games as well this season, and yeah, looks very impressive. So another one to look on this season. And also his game time will probably depend a lot on if Chiellini re-signs, which is up in the air at the moment as well. Or he could be a good candidate to go on loan if Chiellini does re-sign with the club.
All right, interesting. Speaking of players that I have a small affinity for. Dragoshin now being one of them. I mean, this is no secret to anybody who's a long-time listener of this podcast, but Dejan Kulusevski, I absolutely loved his performances when he was at Parma. Obviously, clearly, Juve did as well, spending 35 million on him to sign him from Atalanta. He was obviously on loan at Parma during the 2019-20 season. Whenever I've watched him in the Champions League, it's kind of been one of those where I've thought kind of not getting the best out of him in sort of 20, 30-minute bursts. But then, there was it the Coppa Italia final? Or was it the Super Coppa final that he scored that goal in?
The Coppa Italia final. Just
Coppa
recently.
Italia, yeah, just recently, where he cuts inside and onto his left foot from the right hand channel, the right hand half space, and he just hits one, and he's got great technique. Really, I think I said in my profile of him in one of the handbooks was that he has a very long back, so that he's deceptively quick in how he runs, and he's very good at sort of shifting his body, feinting one way and going the other. And I really like him as a footballer. And, obviously getting that move to Juve was obviously a massive moment, but it just didn't feel as though he kind of kicked on as much. I think in the Italian press, they may have given him a little bit of stick. But I think for any player coming in what was essentially his second Serie A season, to come in with a manager who, for all intents and purposes, was probably just finding his feet as well, just getting his feet under the table. I think that I'd say it's from sort of an external viewpoint, I think he did all right, and I'm probably a bit excited looking towards how he's going to adapt under Allegri, because you're talking about this being a transitional squad, and Kulusevski was excellent in a very transitional Parma team. So if Allegri can get the best out of this team in that sense, then I think Kulusevski could play a major part.
Yeah, I think Kulusevski was probably one of the players that struggled most playing in Pirlo's system. I don't think Pirlo really found a way to fit him in. There was, times he was playing a bit more as a right midfielder, times he was playing as a striker alongside Ronaldo, times he was playing more of a number 8 kind of role through midfield. And I don't think he ever really got that freedom that he had at Parma to just explode on the counter and work his magic in transition, isolate players one-on-one, cut inside, and do his far corner curler that he is incredible at doing. It was just simply because the team moved the ball so slowly going forward. He just did not get many opportunities to use his pace and get down the right wing and do his thing. And the few times that he was able to do it, I think he showed really great signs that, it hasn't gone away. It's just that Pirlo hadn't found a way to unlock it. As you were saying, Allegri, I think, will probably play a bit more of a pragmatic style and sit a little bit deeper and look to counter a little bit more frequently than Pirlo did. And I think that, that should suit Kulusevski's play style. So, I think next season will be a very pivotal season. I'm trying to do the maths in my head to find where he fits in a potential starting 11, or if he's going to be more a bench option to start with. Obviously, long season, he's going to get his opportunities to start at some point. But it will be interesting also to see how Max views his best position and how he intends to get the best out of him.
Listen to you, Max, like your best mates. No, I mean that was one thing that we sort of anticipated. We didn't want it to happen when he went to Juve, Kulusevski, but that Parma were statistically the most counter-attacking side with Kulusevski and Gervinho on either side of the attack there in 2019-20. And it was one thing where you thought, well, if the build-up is slower, if there aren't as many opportunities to counter-attack, if there isn't that space in front of just in front of him, wide open 50, 60 yards to motor into, how is he going to cope when perhaps he has to try and break teams down a lot more and has only got 20, 30 minutes to do so? I think from what you're saying there, that Allegri will perhaps set the team up deeper, maybe look for those counterattacks. And then, it gives me a little bit of hope.
And then if you've got someone like Locatelli that can pick the pass as well, that was the other problem, is you don't really have anyone in the midfield as it's currently constructed that's going to look for that long ball over the top or look for that line breaking pass to set Kulusevski off on his way. Didn't have that this season, and so maybe next year that will be different. Also, Max really set up Bonucci to play those kind of long balls over the top as well. So I think we might see a bit more of that, more direct style that, yeah, as we've said, should suit his play style a lot better.
Moving on, and then obviously we've discussed sort of the young core, the rebuild core at the bottom of, at the bottom end of the age curve in this Juventus squad. But at the top, there is soon to be a 37-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo. He turns 37 next February. Clearly on a massive wage at Juve. Massive. Obviously, scoring 29 Serie A goals is not exactly a drain on resources, but it's possible that there will be questions asked in this team. Steve, refresh my memory. Did Allegri work with Ronaldo in that first season, or did they cross paths?
Yes, they did cross paths. They had one season together in which we were knocked out of the Champions League by Ajax. And yeah, I think it's going to be a interesting reunion if there is one. I've seen rumours about a possible meeting with Ronaldo's entourage to discuss a path forward, and whether Dybala is going to be the central figure in bringing the team into the next cycle, as the club always talks in cycles. But yeah, 29 goals. He's obviously, in his time here, he's been super important. But yeah, there's the other side of it where he demands a lot of things. I think Pirlo struggled as a first-year coach to get Ronaldo to buy in and play the way that Pirlo wanted him to play. Pirlo in his UEFA Pro license dissertation talked about pressing high, winning the ball back quickly, and playing that style. And Ronaldo's statistics this season is basically the lowest volume presser in all of the top 5 European leagues. So you want to play a high pressing style, but one of your forwards is not willing to press at all, then obviously there's going to be big problems in breakdown of your team. So there's two sides to the coin. Obviously, you've got the 30 goals and top scoring in the league, but there's also a team of 11 players that you're wondering whether he fits in with, and the throwing up of the arms when he loses the ball or someone doesn't pass to him or doesn't cross to him, it can be extremely frustrating to watch. So here's another one where there's it remains to be seen where it's headed, but also at the same time it's hard to see another team willing to fork out the enormous salary package that it takes to sign him. If I was a betting man, I'd say that he'll be there next season, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those eternal questions. How do you offload a player on such exorbitant money when no clubs have any of it? I think we were discussing before we started recording, myself and Steve, about how much money Ronaldo is on, and just how much of a sort of an outlay that is, and it's around sort of like 7-8% of how much Juve bring in is Ronaldo's sort of net salary, and you have to think like how much could that be reinvested in a squad? How much of that could be given to a new sporting director, a new manager, a new club hierarchy to refresh a team which perhaps was flagging a little bit at times in this campaign. I think Steve, you said it was only 5 points fewer that they earned compared to the title winning total that under Maurizio Sarri the season before. But of course, 5 points is a lot at the top of the table. I mean, 5 points ended up separating second and fifth, I think, in Serie A this season. So, these are the fine margins that Allegri will be judged on. And I think the Ronaldo debate is an interesting one. It comes into, it speaks to the wider debate of squad planning, essentially. Do you want to be, I know he's going to be turning 37, but he doesn't play like a 37-year-old in absolutely no way is he like a 37-year-old professional footballer in any other sense of the word. But do you put 7, 8, 9% of your your resources into a player like that, who you're going to have to really get back on board. And whether there was any, Steve, I mean, I'm coming to you for this one, but whether there was any sort of maybe not seeing eye to eye with Allegri beforehand, maybe that Ronaldo came in, thought he was the kind of the focal point in this team, and in every sense of the word, not just literally but figuratively as well. With those sort of whispers about Ronaldo's representatives having meetings, is that reactionary to this managerial news? And could Juve be looking at 30 million extra, 30, 40, 50 million extra if they don't have to keep Ronaldo on the books? Obviously, again, the caveat being somebody has to take him, and that's a more difficult task than any. But hypothetically speaking,
I think it's difficult to frame it as a direct opportunity cost because, yes, his wages are 60 million euros per season, but him just arriving at the club pretty much, I had a look at this the other day, kind of brought about just about an equivalent rise in commercial revenue for the club. So, we talk about shirt sales of the player selling themselves, but essentially Ronaldo came in and instantly the club's value in terms of their commercial value rose instantly. So it's hard to say whether, you just take him out and all of a sudden you have this extra money, but does some of it go away if he's not there? But, not only does he take a lot of money, he also takes a lot of attention and, has a lot of demands as being one of the greatest players of all time. So, I don't really think there was any frosty relationship between him and Allegri, but I just think that maybe the club are looking to, rid themselves. Rid is a bit of a strong word, but rid themselves of that cult of personality that's at the center of the squad, and that everything has to revolve around. And maybe just look to return to a time where, everything, not everything being equal, but not having someone so dominant there that everything has to revolve around.
No, I get you, and I think cult of personality is the term that I was sort of just waffling around just before there. I mean, it's something which I think you look at most football teams, and traditionally teams who have an individual player with a cult of personality, probably Lionel Messi at Barcelona aside, they may have fleeting success, but there then becomes issues as a result of that. And I just think if what we've had this discussion about sort of rebuilding using a young core, obviously Pirlo going out the door, Allegri coming back in, Paratici leaving, at a change of the cycle, how long does it take before you kind of have to say, well, we need to make some difficult decisions? I don't know, but had the Champions League not been secured, obviously on the final day by the skin of Juve's teeth by a single point, then yes, this may have been a very, very different podcast in its entirety, because who's to say that Allegri would have come back with no Champions League football? There's lots of whys and possibilities in that. But Steve, before we go, I'd just like to get sort of a 1 to 11 of Juve next season, the first game or the first Champions League game of next season. Who are you picking in that team if you're Max Allegri?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to think of how he's going to set the team up, whether he goes 3 at the back, whether he goes 4 at the back. I think the way that the squad's constructed gives a lot of options. Obviously, he's got a lot of attacking quality to fit in, but he's also got some really, really good centre backs. So, goalkeeper, it's going to be Szczesny or Donnarumma. Who knows? I think it sounds like Donnarumma's on his way out of Milan. So, where does he go? Juventus seems like a logical destination, but I think it also relies on the club being able to move Szczesny on because he's such a high wage earner. So we'll just say Szczesny, and then I think Delict, Demiral, Bonucci, probably Sandro and Quadrado as wing backs, Locatelli, Bentancur, and Rabiot through midfield, and then any kind of combination of Chiesa, Dybala, Morata, Ronaldo, Kulusevski in attack. But if it's a 3-5-2, you're probably more likely to see Dybala and someone, probably Ronaldo.
Interesting, because what I'm hearing obviously is you're bringing in Locatelli, which I think we agree is a player who's definitely attainable and available this summer. But you're also bringing in Donnarumma if you had your way. Obviously, you know there's no confirmation that Szczesny will be on his way out. But you know you say that obviously Szczesny's a high earner, but then you look at the fact that you'd be getting Donnarumma on a free, surely, wouldn't you? Because his Milan contract's up. Is there any concern there from sort of a financial perspective that you know you're going to have to pay, you know, God knows how much to Mino Raiola, who's obviously his agent? You know, you with him being a free agent, then you're probably going to have to up his Milan salary, which you know was notoriously you know a sticking point for that club in renewing. I know they're going to go for Mike Maignan from Lille, or it looks that way, and they're probably going to save money on it. But is that not an issue for Juve just because of the commercial revenue that they bring in, but also the financial potential is massive for when fans are back and all that sort of thing?
Well, I think the club probably see him as a, you know, Buffon-esque figure that could be your goalkeeper for the next 10, 12, 15 years. And so I think when you see that available, then it's only natural, especially as he's Italian, it fits. And yeah, I think, and you know, his wage will be high, but I don't think it'll be a huge amount higher than Szczesny's, who's already earning quite a lot. So, you know, there's things to play out there. Obviously, you need to find someone that wants to take Szczesny off your hands. So we'll see on that front. Although we might see Donnarumma see that there is not a huge market out there for him, because I think there'll be a lot of clubs that think that much money on the wage of a goalkeeper, we're kind of happy with what we have now. Is that really where we want to pool our limited resources in this COVID financial world that we live in? So, yeah, but I think to make this team look really good, there's one signing that I had in that 11, apart from if you discount Donnarumma, there's one signing there, Locatelli. And I think that the 11 with just that addition sounds really, really strong. So, yeah, optimistic, new manager, one signing, and this team, I think, will look really good going into Serie A next year. Champions League is a completely different story. It's kind of hard to gauge, but yes, optimistic.
Yeah, definitely. A bit of a shorter episode this week than we usually have, but I think it's been a whistle-stop tour of sort of the end of Juventus's campaign, what the
future holds,
and some good transfers chat there as well. I think, you know, if Locatelli does end up moving to Juventus in the summer, I think we know we've got a ringing endorsement from Mr. Steven Ganavas there. Just before we go, Steve, just any final words sort of on handbook prep, on anything of Volume 10's nature?
Okay, yeah, so the handbook launched yesterday. You can find it at sfhandbook.com. It's £10 for a copy, and all the books will be shipping in just over a week's time. Yeah, so go there, grab a copy, grab some of the previous handbooks, or subscribe. But yeah, apart from that, happy days.
Yeah, Steve's been very humble about this. You know, he's spent an extreme amount of time sort of editing, you know, with the sub-editing. There's been an enormous amount of work gone into this book, Volume 10. And we're really grateful we've been able to get to number 10 to keep producing these books. And we fully believe that they're getting better and better with each one that we do. So thank you to anybody and everybody who's subscribed, who's bought a copy. But yeah, I'd implore everybody to check that out. But this has been the Scouted Football Handbook with me, Joe Donoghue, and Steven Ganavas, discussing Juventus' end to the season. That is all from us. Take care, stay safe, and bye for now.